The Plum in the Golden Vase, Chongzhen version of the embroidered portrait. Chapter 99. Liu drunkenly scolded Wang Liu and Zhang Shang eavesdropped on Zhang Jingji. The poem says, by Yun Mountain, red-leafed trees, watch the rise and fall. Just like morning and evening. How many sunsets are crossing the grass, the tides are ebbing and flowing. And they're sending people coming and going. Ruangong Road, Yangtze Road, 9 folds of sheep's intestines, once the wheel was wrong. I remember the place where horses neighed in the cold, green officials and silver zithers sang at dawn in the building every night. Right tune Sumuse. Speaking of Chen Jingji, 2 days later, on the 3rd day, it was his birthday on May 20th. Wine and food were arranged in the back hall to celebrate his birthday, and the whole family had a happy day. The next morning, Jingji said, I have never gone down the river, I have nothing to do today. I will go for a walk. Firstly, I will settle accounts with the supervisor. Secondly, I will escape from the heat. I will go back after walking. Chen, my paid, you go and take a ride on the sedan, so you don't have to work too hard. He asked his soldiers to carry the sedan, and Xiao Jinger followed him and walked down the river to the restaurant. There was no words to say all the way. When afternoon arrived, I got off the sedan chair and went inside. The 2 supervisors came together to see him and asked, does an official have a better health? Jingji said, the 2 assistants are concerned about life and education. He only focused on Sister Hanai. After sitting for a while, he stood up and asked the supervisor, check. Leave the account and wait for me to do the calculation. Then he turned around and went to the back. The 8 elders met them early and reported to Wang Liu and his wife. Sister Hanai is upstairs, leaning on the railing, looking forward to it, and composing poems to express her feelings. Suddenly it was reported that Chen Jingji was coming. He quickly moved his steps, put on his xiang skirt, and walked downstairs. Mother and son greeted him with smiles on their faces and said, officials, it's hard to meet noble people. How could the wind blow you here? Jingji bowed to his mother and son, and went into the pavilion to sit down together. After a while, Wang Liu ordered tea. After finishing the tea, Sister Ai said, please invite me to sit down in the slave room upstairs. When Jingji came upstairs, the 2 of them were like fish in water, talking about affectionate words. Under Sister Ai's inkstone, a piece of flower paper was exposed. Jingji took it and looked at it. Sister Ai then said, this is a poem that I wrote in hopes that you would not come, to entertain my boredom, and to avoid staining the eyes of the officials. Jingji read it again and wrote, tired of leaning on the embroidered bed, feeling lazy and leisurely hanging on the brocade tent with her temples low. There was no news after Yuling laughed, and I missed him 12 hours a day. Jingji saw it and was extremely envious. After a while, Wang Liu arranged for wine and food to go upstairs, picked up the mirror frame, and placed it on the dressing table. The 2 of them sat side by side, and the beloved sister sifted a glass of wine, handed it to her with both hands, and said a deep blessing, saying, the officials never come, and I miss you all the time. When the first 8 elders came, they thanked them for the money, and the whole family. I'm so grateful. Jingji took the wine in his hand, returned it, and said, I'm uneasy. I've missed my appointment, so don't blame me. When the wine was gone, he drank a glass of wine and offered it to his beloved sister, and the 2 of them sat down. Pour the wine. Wang Liu and Han Daoguo came up and had a few drinks with them. They each went downstairs at their own convenience, where they could have a few drinks at their own leisure and exchange some farewell words. For a long time, when the wine was heavy and the food was strong, the passion was as high as fire, and it was inevitable to talk about the old love again. In the time of intercourse, there is infinite kindness. Get dressed, wash your hands and drink a few more glasses. Drunk eyes are hazy, and the fun is not exhausted. This young man has always been unhappy at home, and he loves his sister, so he has never done anything with his wife. Once I see my lover today, I will break up before I even agree to it. They were enemies of life and death who collided 500 years ago, and Jingji's soul was confused by him. After a while, love rose again, and I had sex again. I felt sleepy and couldn't stand it. I didn't eat lunch, so I fell asleep on the bed. It was also a coincidence that the disaster was caused. I didn't want to see the official who was selling silk cotton downstairs. Wang Liuer was having wine with him downstairs. Han Daoguo went out to the street to buy vegetables, dishes, and fruits to go with the wine. The two are having sex down there after Han Daoguo bought some fruits and vegetables. The three of them had a few more drinks. Around 11 o'clock a.m., I saw Liuer, a man sitting on the floor of Sajia restaurant, very drunk. He opened his clothes and exposed his purple flesh. He walked downstairs with his fists in hand and shouted, "Bring out the barbarian." Seeing Jingji sleeping upstairs, the two supervisors were afraid that he might hear him. So they hurriedly walked out of the closet and made a promise, saying, "Brother Liu, Mr. He has never come." Liuer listened. He rushed into Han Daoguo's room at the back and pulled half of the door curtain open with one hand. He saw He Guanren and Wang Liuer drinking side by side. He was furious and scolded He Guanren, "Thieves and bitches, I'll fuck your mother. I didn't look for you, but here you are. You occupied a fans in my store. You have been denied money for several times. And you have paid 2 months of my rent. But you are here to support your wife. Why is this official so busy?" Liuer came out and said, "Don't blame me, brother. I'll go." Then Liuer cursed, "Fuck you, you dog." An unexpected punch came, hitting He Guan's face, and he immediately turned green. Swollen, the official he didn't care, so he grabbed the door and ran away. Liu's second general, Wang Liuer, was a drunkard. He jumped up and down, and all his household chores were beaten. Wang Liuer then cursed, "It was the young thief over there who killed me. I came to my mother's house to fart when I had nothing to do. My mother is not a person who can't stand being frightened." Liuer kicked forward, stamped his arms, and cursed. Said, "I am your slut. Where did you come from? An unknown young man. Why don't you come and report to the master, and allow you to stay in this hotel while we are familiar with each other? Why don't you move in with me? If you move in too late, you must give me a good fist." Then Wang Liuer said, "Where are you from? I have no relatives. Why do you want to bully me?" He knocked me down and cried. "Stand up." Liuer scolded, "I kicked the whore's intestines out, and you still don't know who the master is." The place was noisy, and many neighbors and people passing by on the street gathered round to watch. Someone nearby said, "Wang Liuer, you are new here, but you don't know that he is the brother-in-law of Zhang Yahu, the steward of the guard master's house, and he is famous as Liuer, the land tiger. He lives in Sajian and is the head of the powder-making team, the leader of the hotel. Just let him go. No one in this place dares to mess with him." Wang Liuer said, "What's the point of killing Liu?" The second beat him fiercely, and he and Fatty Z did good things and persuaded him to go. Chen Jingji was sleeping on the bed when he heard the commotion downstairs. He got up and saw that it was already west. He asked, "Where is the commotion?" Han Daoguo went there without knowing where he was going. He saw Wang Liuer with disheveled hair and dirty face. "Go upstairs and tell him like this. There comes a killer and a troublemaker, nicknamed Liuer, a land tiger. He lives in Sajian. He says he is the brother-in-law of Zhang Yahu, the steward of our house. He is looking for a hotel and has nothing to do." I kicked and scolded him, and smashed all the drinking vessels into pieces. He burst into tears. Jingji asked the two supervisors to ask. The two supervisors couldn't hide it, so they had to say, "It's Liuer, Zhang Yuho's brother-in-law in the mansion. He came here to ask for money from official He." When they saw him eating wine in the room, they couldn't help but pull down half of the curtain and beat He. The official punched him so hard that He Guanren ran away. He then started to fight with Mrs. Han and kicked him, which made everyone in the street look on. After Jingji heard this, he knew that he was a Taoist priest before. He beat Liuer. He wanted to make a statement, but he was afraid that Liuer would do something cruel, so he couldn't fight him for a while. Seeing that it was getting late again, he asked, "Where is that fellow Liuer now?" The supervisor said, "The villain persuaded him to go back." Jingji comforted Wang Liuer and said, "Don't worry, mother and son, you have me, so it's okay. It's okay for you and your son to stay here as long as I want. The supervisor calculated the money and handed it to him, then got on the sedan and followed him. As soon as I rushed into the city, it was already dark and I was very upset. I met Chun Mai when I got home, paid the interest and put it into the room. A night without words. The next day, I was thinking about telling Chun Mai. And then I thought, hang on, while I slowly find out a few flaws about Zhang, I will tell my sister to tell the master and kill him. I can't bear this guy. He deceived me several times and dared to say that he had found me. He knew my origin and could not stop him even if he looked at me. Enmity should be repaid like this. And the opportunity met Mo Yuan too. It takes no effort to get there even if you wear iron shoes. One day, Jingji came to the Hexia Hotel, met Sister I, mother and son, and said, "We are surprised." He then asked Manager Lu, "Has Mr. Liu ever moved around?" Manager Lu said, since that day he asked Sister Hanai again. Then the official didn't come to visit? Sister I said, he never came again. After Jingji had finished his meal, he inevitably came to Sister I again. Upstairs, the two had a heart-to-heart talk and came out for a while. Because they were idle, they asked Chen Sanner, who had drunk too much, to come over and inquire about Zhang and Liu Er's flaws in the mansion. Chen Sanner and Chen Sanner were completely different from each other. They told Zhang Bao that he was occupying Zui, who came out of the house and was working as a watchmaker in Sajia's shop. How could Liu Er be in various nests, asking for profits, raising private debts, and doing bad things in the name of his master? Jingji took this idea to heart and went back and forth with Sister I, settling the accounts with his supervisor, paying the interest, and saying goodbye to Chi Taku when he came home. No more gossip. They always have good intentions in mind. On the one hand, they are enemies, and on the other hand, when they work together, they cause trouble. Unexpectedly, Emperor Hizong, who was in the imperial court in Tokyo, saw the Dajin troops encroaching on the border and snatching the place inside the belly. The sound was very urgent. The emperor panicked, discussed with his ministers, and sent officials to the northern country to make peace. He was willing to pay millions of annual coins, gold, silver, silk, and silk every year. On the one hand, the throne was passed on and the prince ascended the throne. The 7th year of Xuan was changed to the 1st year of Jinkang, and the title of Emperor Xuan was Qinzong. During the reign of the emperor, Hizong proclaimed himself Emperor Taishang Daojin and retired to Long Palace. In the middle of the court, Li Gang was promoted to Minister of War, and he was divided into various departments. Zhang Shidao is a general and the governor of internal and external military affairs. One day, an edict was sent to Jinan Prefecture, and he was promoted to the governor of Shandong Province. He mobilized 10,000 men and horses to station in Dongchang Prefecture. Together with Zhang Shui, the governor of the capital, he defended the place and blocked the Jin soldiers. After receiving the imperial edict, the guard did not dare to neglect it. At the same time, he called Zhang and Li and to come forward to share the payment. He first took to carriages with luggage and soft utensils to his home. It turns out that he served as an official in Jinan for 1 year and earned a huge amount of gold and silver. They were all packed in a luggage case and entrusted to the two men to take them to their home. The delivery is clear and the patrols are careful day and night. I will join you, Governor Zhang, in the near future to command for troops to attack Qing County. The two men received the goods that day. After receiving Zhen's decree, he packed up his vehicles and got up to go ahead. There were no words all the way. One day when we arrived at the house, the settlement was clear, and the two of them patrolled inside and outside day and night. Chen Jingji saw Zhang Sheng coming home with a carriage, and the garrison commander was promoted to the governor of Shandong and would arrive soon. He was about to tell Chen Mai about his secrets, and waited for the garrison commander to come home to expose Zhang Sheng's affairs. Unexpectedly, one day, because his wife Guai Ping went to her parents' home, he was alone in the west study to sleep, and Chen Mai suddenly entered the room to see him. Seeing the maid following them, the two of them undressed and made love in the room. Unexpectedly, Zhang Sheng rang the bell and came to patrol the wind. When he arrived at the corner door of the academy, he heard the sound of a woman laughing in the study. so he pressed the bell and slowly walked to the window to eavesdrop. It turned out that Chen Mai was having sex with Jingji inside. I heard Jingji tell Chen Mai, "Zhang Shang is such a scoundrel. He bullies me and says that I owed him my fortune. He has also slandered me in front of his servants several times. Yesterday, he saw me running a tavern in Hexia and sent his brother-in-law, Liu, to attack my tavern and drive away all the customers. He has always relied on his brother-in-law to run a nest there and lend money privately. He also took Zoe away to have sex with her, and only my sister knew about it. I endured it several times and didn't dare to tell my sister. If I hadn't told my brother-in-law when he came home, I would never have dared to do business in Hexia in the future." Chen Mai heard this and said, "This guy is so ruthless. Li, I sold Zoe, that bitch. Why do you keep her outside?" Jingji said, "She either bullies me or my sister." Chen Mai said, "Wait for her father to come home and let him kill this guy. As the saying goes, there must be ears behind the wall, and there must be someone outside the window." The two of them just talked inside, but they didn't know that Zhang Shang heard everything clearly outside the window. He didn't say anything, but thought to himself, "It's better for me to plot against him first than to let him plot against me now." He left the bell and went to the front classroom to get a steel knife for wrist cutting. In a flash, he sharpened it on the stone and walked into the academy. Unexpectedly, it was a good opportunity for Chen Mai to die in his hands. Suddenly, the little maid Lan Hua came to call Chen Mai in a hurry and reported, "Young Master Jin Jier suddenly fell down due to the wind. Please ask the grandmother to see him." Chen Mai was frightened and ran to the back room to see the child. As soon as he entered, Zhang Shang ran into the study room with a knife. He didn't see Chen Mai, but Jingji sleeping in the quilt. When he saw him coming in, he shouted, "Ah, what are you doing here?" Zhang Shang said angrily, "I'm here to kill you. How can you say that to the whore? But you want to harm me. I found you, didn't I? You're repaying kindness with hatred. As the saying goes, black-headed worms cannot be saved, and if they are saved, they will eat human flesh. Don't run away, take my knife. This day next year will be your death anniversary." Jingji was naked and had nowhere to hide. He just hugged the quilt. Zhang Shang pulled him aside and stabbed him with a knife. The piercing hit the soft ribs, and blood gushed out. Zhang Shang saw him struggling, and stabbed him again, stabbing his chest, making him unable to move. He picked his hair and cut off his head. Just like 3 inches of hair can be used in 1,000 ways. One day of impermanence. Everything is over. Poor Jingji died before he was 39 years old. Zhang Shang took up his knife and went around the back of the bed in the room. He looked for Chen Mai, but she was nowhere to be found. He walked towards the back hall. When he reached the ceremonial gate, he saw Lian patrolling there with a bell on his back. When he saw Zhang Shang running in with a knife like a fierce man, he asked, "Where are you going?" Zhang Shang did not answer and just walked away. He was stopped by Lian. Zhang Shang stabbed Lian with his knife, Li, and sneered and said, "My uncle is known as Shandong Yaksha Gui. I don't need to borrow my skills." He kicked his right foot and kicked the knife to the side with a sound of telling. Zhang Shang was anxious, and the two of them grabbed each other. Lian kicked him and he fell to the ground. He untied the belt around his waist and tied him up immediately. Chen Mai in the back hall heard the noise and said, "Zhang Shang came in with a knife. I caught him." Chen Mai had just saved Jinj and was shocked to hear the words. When she walked into the academy, she saw Jingji had been killed in the room, with blood all over the floor. She burst into tears. At the same time, he sent someone to inform his wife. Kuai-ping rushed home in a hurry and saw Jingji was killed. She cried and fell to the ground, unconscious. Chen Mai rescued her and woke her up. She dragged the body over and bought a coffin for the funeral. She locked Zhang Shangdan in the prison and waited for the commander to come home to deal with the matter. After a few days, the military situation was urgent and the soldiers came to urge. Commander Zhou had mobilized all the troops, and Governor Zhang had gone to Dongshang Prefecture to wait for them to gather. When the commander came home, Chen Mai told him about the killing of Jingji. Lian put the murder weapon in front of him and knelt down to report the previous incident. The commander was furious and sat in the hall. He brought up Zhang Shangdan without asking any questions. He ordered the military prison to beat him with 5 sticks for 100 sticks and beat him to death immediately. Then he sent a flag bearer to catch Liu, the local tiger, and brought him home. Sun Sui saw that Liu was captured, and she was afraid of him, so she went to the room and hanged herself. The flag bearer took Liu to the government office, and the commander also ordered him to be beaten with 100 sticks, and he was beaten to death on the same day. King County was shocked and lynching prefecture was in chaos. It was just like this: I have done evil and deceived God all my life, and now God will punish me. There is a poem to prove it. Don't be deceitful. There is God above your head. If you still do evil and don't get retribution, the thugs in the world will eat each other. At that time, the commander killed the 2 people and eliminated the harm to the local area. Lian was ordered to return the Mata Hotel to its original owner and collect the capital. Chen Mai was ordered to stay at home and hold a 7-day fast with Jingji, and the burial was sent to Yangfu Temple outside the city. Lian and Zhou Yi were left to look after the house, and Zhou Zhang and Zhou Ren were taken to the military gate to agree. Chen Mai and Sun Erniang had a farewell dinner in the evening, and she burst into tears. She said, "My husband, I don't know when he will return. You must be careful when you go to war. The foreign soldiers are rampant, and you must not underestimate the enemy." The commander said, "You should stay at home and keep a low profile. Take good care of the children. And don't worry. Since I have received the title and salary from the court, I will be loyal to the country. As for good or bad luck, survival or death, it is up to heaven." After giving instructions, a night passed. The next day, the troops and horses were stationed outside the city, waiting for the commander to set off. There was no word along the way. One day, when they arrived at Dongshang Prefecture, the commander sent a blue flag with the word Ling to report to the city. When the governor Zhang Shui heard that Commander Zhou's troops had arrived, he and the prefect of Dongshang Prefecture, Da Diandao, went out of the Yamen to greet them. They went to the public hall to sit down and discuss military information and inquire about the urgency of the situation. After staying overnight, the troops and horses set out early the next day to defend the pass. It's no problem. However, Han Iji and her son heard that Chen Jingji had died in the inn of Shijialo. Iji cried day and night and refused to eat. She only wanted to go to the governor's mansion in the city to see Jingji's body and die. Her parents and others tried to persuade her in vain. Han Daguo had no choice but to ask the 8 elders to go to the governor's mansion to find out that Jingji's coffin had been buried in Yangfu Temple outside the city. The 8 elders came and replied. Iji wanted to burn paper on his grave and cry, and also to make friends with him. Her parents had no choice but to let her do what she wanted. They hired a sedan chair and went to Yangfu Temple to ask the elder where he was buried. The elder asked the monk to lead him to the back of the temple, where the new grave was. Han Iji got off the sedan chair, lit the paper bag in front of the grave, bowed and cried, "My dear brother, I really hoped to grow old with you, but who would have thought that I would die today?" She burst into tears and fainted, hitting her head on the ground and died. Han Daguo and Wang Li were panicked and rushed forward to rescue her, calling her sister, but she didn't respond, and she panicked even more. Unexpectedly, that day was the 3rd day of the funeral. Chen Mai and her wife, Kuiping, sat into sedan chairs, followed by attendants carrying 3 sacrificial animals to warm his grave and burn paper. They saw a young woman, dressed in mourning clothes and wearing a mourning bun on her head, crying on the ground. A man and a middle-aged woman hugged him and helped him up, but he fell down again, unconscious, and was shocked. When asked where the man was from, Han Daguo and his wife Bodan told him the past story. "This is my daughter Han Iji." When Chen Mai heard Iji's name, she remembered that she had met her in Ximen King's house in the past, and she also knew Wang Liu. Han Daguo told her the whole story of the incident in Kai's mansion in Tokyo. The girl once met Mr. Chen, but she died unexpectedly. He wanted to come to the grave to see him and burn paper money, but he didn't expect to come here and cried again. The 2 rescued Iji for half a day, and Iji vomited a mouthful of sticky phlegm and woke up, but she was still choking and couldn't cry out. After crying bitterly, she kowtowed for times with Chen Mai and Kuiping, saying, "Although he and I were just a couple for a short time, he and I made a promise to each other, and we were deeply in love. I really hoped to live with him until old age, but I didn't expect that he would die first." leaving me with nothing. He once gave me a Wu silk handkerchief with 4 lines of love poems on it. He knew that I had a sister at home, and I was willing to be her mistress. If you don't believe it, she took out a Wu silk handkerchief from her sleeve, and there were 4 lines of poems on it. Chun Mai and Kwai Ping read them. The poem goes, "The Wu silk handkerchief has a crisscross pattern, and the ink is fresh. I send it to the affectionate 5th sister Han, and wish for a long-lasting love." IG said, "I also have a small mandarin duck brocade bag, which he carries with him. Both sides are embroidered with lotus flowers, and each lotus petal has a word, to my lover Chen Jun, on his knees." Chun Mai asked Kwai Ping, "Why is the sachet missing?" Kwai Ping said, "It was tied to his underwear, and I put it in the coffin for him. After the sacrifice, he asked his mother and son to go to the temple to set up tea and food, and persuaded him to eat some. Wang Liwer saw that it was getting dark, so he urged him to get up, but he just didn't want to leave. He knelt in front of Chun Mai and Kwai Ping and cried, 'I would rather not return to my parents and live with my sister in mourning. I will die tomorrow and be with his soul. It is also a favor between me and him, and I can say that I am his wife and children.' As she spoke, tears flowed like a spring. Kwai Ping just kept silent. Chun Mai said, "My sister, I am afraid that you are too young to keep me, but I will not waste your good time." IG said, "What are you talking about, Grandma? Since I am with him, I will keep my chastity even if my eyes and nose are cut off. I swear not to marry anyone else." She told her parents, "Your husband and mother-in-law can go back. I will go to the mansion with Grandma and sister." Wang Liwer cried, "I expected you to support us until we grow old. And then I took you away from the tiger's den and dragon's pool. Today, you have taken advantage of me." IG said, "I will not go. You can leave me here. I will find death when I get home." Han Daguo saw that his daughter was determined not to go, so he cried with Wang Liwer, said goodbye with tears, and went back to the inn in Linqing. Han IG, Chun Mai and Kwai Ping took a sedan chair to the mansion. Wang Liwer was very sad all the way, but he couldn't bear to leave his daughter, so he cried again and again. Han Daguo was afraid that it would get late, so he hired 2 horses and hurried on. It is exactly, the horse is slow and the road is long, the body is like duckweed or a tumbleweed. Only the moon on the gate tower shines on the people's sorrow of separation.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.